This week, on Deadfill Sunday, we'll be observing what we can learn from Taylor Swift's recent move to re-record and release her old albums, still owned by her old record label. To explore the philosophical importance of this big pop culture move, we will call on a study of phenomenology of the self. In the past year, Taylor Swift has been very vocal about the significance of her masters being sold without her approval, nor her gaining the opportunity to buy it herself. Following this sale, she had announced her decision to re-record the totality of her albums. This week, the first of those re-recorded tapes came out. From the melody, lyrics, to the rhythm and tone, the song is virtually identical to the original. The only exception is the bracketed Taylor's version. Today we ask, why is that bracketed phrase worth the financial and time commitment re-recording music takes? What is in a name an ownership that is so important to the self? First of all, it is important to understand that our understanding of ourselves is predictive of the way that we will come to understand others. This is what Husserl argues, that alterity exists within our own subjectivity before it exists in our relationship with others. Zahavi puts it this way: when we observe our left arm, we experience it in a way that anticipates the way that we will come to experience others. This is to say that we, to some extent, understand ourselves as we would understand another or an alter. This, however, also works in reverse. If we understand ourselves through the other, then surely the other partially understands us through an understanding of himself. As such, our understanding of both ourselves and others are constantly interacting with each other. Assuming that we all desire to be understood accurately, then two things become really important to assure this. The first is that we project the clearest image of who it is that we are. That is to say, we paint a picture of ourselves that is as clear as one another will look at their own arm. And the second is that we commit ourselves to spending adequate time in understanding others. Swift, re-recording and releasing her old music, does the first one perfectly. The bracketed Taylor's version is an attempt to paint a clear picture of whose art it is that one is listening to, and by extension, who it is that we are listening to. She is projecting that these newly recorded versions are the clearest image of herself. This way, she ensures that neither others nor herself may misinterpret her identity. The second commitment to spending time understanding others is trickier and asks us a deeper question. It involves coming to the realization that one cannot ask to know the other as one does themselves. As Levinas says through Zahavi, to demand more, to claim that I would have a real experience of the other only if I experienced her feelings or thoughts in the same way as she herself does, is nonsensical. It would imply that I would experience another only if I experienced her in the same way that I experience myself. That is, it would lead to an abolition of the difference between self and other, a negation of the alterity of the other, of that which makes the other, other. End quote. If one cannot come to understand the other without absorbing it into the self, then what is left to do to understand it, other than refining our knowledge of our own self? Refining that knowledge, self-knowledge, Kearney argues, is the key to a better understanding and engaging with others. For it is asking us to understand the seeds of alterity that already exist within us. To do this might require deep introspection through psychological and therapeutic commitments, but it could also come through the creation of art, comedy, literature, poetry, and if all this, then why not songwriting and re-recording one's past work? This week, we stand in solidarity with artists struggling to own their own art. This marks the end of the 19th episode of our Deadfill Sunday series. We hope you enjoyed it and that we'll see you next week.